Now that you are ready for taking real calls, I want to go through a few remaining rules for taking customer information. When you start taking calls, most of them will come in with call IDs, and if they were a returning customer, it will show up with something like this, where the phone section is already self-populated and the address is also auto-populated. In the case of a pickup order, you don't need to repeat the phone number or the address. You can go directly into the order and just take the order for the customer. If this was a delivery order, again, you don't need to confirm the phone number. All you need to do is read back the address to the customer. The way that you read back is by reading one number at a time. So this one would be 515 Main Street. So you would say something like, okay, this is for delivery. Is your address 515 Main Street? Okay, great, thank you. And then continue taking the order. For taking calls without a caller ID, it will show up as something like this, right? In that case, you must always take the customer's phone number first before you start taking the order. The reason why we do that is, in the event that the call gets disconnected, we have a number that we can use to call the customer back. So in the event that it is a no caller ID phone, take the phone number and make sure that it is correct. And the way that you read it back is by reading it one digit at a time. So for example, for this number, you will read it as 585-798-0612. Alright? And then next, if this is a delivery order, you will get the address. Again, the address, you have to read it one letter at a time. 515 Main Street. You never read it back as 515 Main Street. For calls that do not have a caller ID, after you are done with the call, again, ask the customer for the phone number. The reason why we do that is because every once in a while, we get a prank call. So a lot of times if somebody's pranking, they will give you an arbitrary number. At the end of the call, it's already been 2-3 minutes. When you ask them to repeat the same phone number again, chances are they won't remember. So that's when you know that there's a high chance that that's a prank call. Alright, so the rule for taking the address is to make sure that we correctly capture what the customer is telling us. And then we need to make sure that the address makes logical sense, which means to make sure that the address is within the deliverable range of the restaurant. So for example, if a customer had said 51543 Main Street, Medina, you would check by clicking on the blue button here. Notice how Google says just Main Street, Medina, whereas what you enter is 51543 Main Street. What this tells you is that Main Street does exist in Medina, but the building number does not exist. That's why Google Maps is just giving you a random Main Street. So this is when you know that an address is wrong. Now, let's do another example. If the customer address is something like 515 Main Street and it's in some really far away town, let's say Long Island City. I don't know if this one makes any sense, but it says 515 Main Street, New York. Notice that this is 367 miles away. That's when you know that there is something wrong with this address. In that case, confirm again and make sure that if you still don't get it, get the attention of one of the supervisors or one of the managers. Now the steps for taking the new address is this. First, you have to listen quietly and carefully to capture whatever you hear from the customer. And then you politely ask the customer to repeat the address and spell out the street name. You must always spell out the street name. For example, we have a restaurant where literally in the town there is L-U-I-S, Lewis Street, and L-E-W-I-S, Lewis Street. So if you don't spell it out, you're never going to get the right one. And it's a lot of trouble for the delivery guy, especially when it's busy, to go all over town looking for that right address. So again, you must ask customer to spell out a new address to you. Never spell the new street name to the customer, because a lot of times when you spell it out, the customer isn't paying attention and they're just going to say yes. After the customer has given you the address, you must read the street number back one letter at a time. For example, King Street, if the address was 515 King Street, you would read 515 King Street, K as in King, I as in iPhone, N as in Nancy, G as in Girl Street. Is that correct? Now, if the address is difficult and the customer is starting to get agitated because you keep asking, this is a sign when you need to move on and take the order first and then come back to take the address at the end. The reason why we do that is you don't want to keep on dwelling on a difficult patch. You want to move on, take the order first so that the customers feel like they're committed to this order, and then you can come back and get the address. If in the beginning you keep on making the customer repeat back the address and you don't get it, there's a high chance that they're just going to hang up and order at another restaurant. So the trick here is give the address 1 or 2 tries. If you feel like you're having difficulty, take the order first by saying, okay, let me take the order first, please. And a lot of times what I do is I'll ask the customer for the address and then I'll start taking the order. While I'm getting the order, there's always a few seconds here and there when the customer's thinking. I go back and I look at the map and then I confirm the address. And then after I'm done with the order, I confirm the address again with the customer. If it is still difficult, please tell the customer to hold on for a second and have one of the managers or supervisors come over to take the address. Now, some very important rules. Never accept street intersection as an address. For example, Main Street and South Avenue. That does not make any sense. So what they're giving you is an intersection there. Main Street and South Avenue. Now next is, if a customer is providing the business name or the business type, please input it into the system on the name field. It makes delivery a lot faster and easier because a lot of business names are very well recognized. So if this is a business, let's say they're saying this is Walmart, right? You put in Walmart here and then you would ask, if this is a business, you always ask for a name. So if they say the name is Michael, you do that. You use a hyphen to separate the two words. Now, if you get the feeling that this is a large business entity, for example, a factory, a school, a hospital, you must ask for the customer name, the department, and the direct contact information. A lot of time you will recognize that a number that is too good to be a personal number, it is probably a business phone. So what you do is you would get a direct phone number. So if this is calling from Walmart, you would ask for, okay, Michael, what department you're in? Maybe they say the fruits section. And then you ask for, Michael, what's your direct phone number? You get the number. So all of this would be there. Walmart, Michael, fruit section, the phone number. Now, if they give you an extension number, this is what you do. You put EXT 125. Let's say that's the extension number. Alright? And then when you take an order, always ask if this is a private house, apartment building, or a business. That way, if it's a house, you know you don't have to get an apartment. If it's an apartment, you know you need to ask for an apartment number. And the way that we show apartment number is putting a pound sign. So this would be, you know, if this was the actual number, let's say 2547 3rd Avenue, apartment 76B. So you would do that. So use the pound sign for apartment. You don't do APT. Okay? That's not our standard, even though technically that is correct. Alright? And then if by asking if this is a private house, apartment building, or business, a lot of times if it is a business, they will tell you that it's a business. So that's the question you always have to ask. If this is a new address, after getting the address, you ask, is this a private house, apartment building, or business? Remember those 3 things. Since for this restaurant, it's only one town, it's only in the Bronx, so you don't have to ask, you know, what town. In the case of Great Wall, remember that they deliver to multiple towns, so you ask them, what town is that in? And if a customer is getting confused by what you mean, say, is this in Medina, which is the town they're from, or pick one of the other one, or Middleport. That way they know what you're trying to ask. Now, another thing to keep in mind is the abbreviation for the words street, boulevard, road, or circle, right? So let me put in, if the address is 515 Main Street, first you always keep everything capitalized, and then you do street. You never spell out street like this because that's too wordy for our clients to read. So avenue is just going to be AVE. Boulevard is BLVD. Circle you can spell it out. And then the other thing is if it's let's say 2nd Avenue, right? You don't do 2ND Avenue. All you have to do is put 2 and then AVE. So 3rd Avenue would be 3RD instead of being 3RD, RD. Alright? So that's it for getting the customer information. Make sure you get this correctly. And another thing is, if there's a confidential note, make sure when you take the order, you read the confidential note. That's why it's there. We put the confidential note to try to help you when you take orders. So if there's a confidential note, always read it. And what I like to do when I take an order is, whenever there's an order coming in, I always check on the more section to see what they have ordered. That way, mentally, I get a sense of what they're trying to order. And that helps me to take orders more correctly. And also, you know, if this is a customer where you see they order a lot of food all at one time, mentally you're ready for taking a large order. And you're going to be a little bit more careful.